welcome back to part 2 of Utopia's electrical devices.
When you order the underwater lights, they give you 2 lights either side of a sugar scoop, just a little bit apart from each other. But the problem with the way they install them is those lights are shining right down, straight down, and when you're standing on the sugar scoop, you've almost got to lean over to try and look underneath it where the light is. So we had them bring those 2 lights much closer up to the side, so they're shining down at an angle and they're right at the side, so you don't need to lean over to look for the light. It's right there. And then we also had a third one on each sugar scoop, so an additional 2 put right at the back, shining aft and then sideways, so we get a lot of light on Utopia, and it looks pretty good. We've had 3 sets of lights put on our solar arch. There's 3 on either side. Now they all, each set, one on either side, works on a different button. The main set that we use has this button here on the aft sugar scoops, and they work together. So if we turn this button on over here on this side, we can go turn the lights off from the other side, or we can turn them on from that side and turn them off. So they work in tandem. And then the second set works from the helm station. So if for some reason I'm at the helm station and we need to turn those lights on the aft sugar scoops, and by the way, these lights are fantastic when getting in and out of the dinghies. They're right on top, pretty much as far back as you can go, and you get all that light flooding into the dinghy. So if you're looking for something on the dinghy floor, it's perfect. So when we get visitors coming in the night, or we leaving or coming or going in the night, we use that. And then the third one I actually haven't set up, which I feel quite bad about, but it's operated from it's got a relay. The third set has got a relay, and we've got a remote control, and I need to set up the remote control so that the concept is when we're in the dinghy coming up at night, we can hit the button, they turn on ahead of us, even prior to us getting there. So somebody doesn't have to get out and walk up the steps to the top of the sugar scoop and hit that switch. And then Melinda's favorite, which, if you say to me, would I do again? I'm going, maybe not, probably not, to tell the truth, but Melinda loves it. I suppose because she designed that logo, is these lights behind the logo. They look very impressive, I must say. They look wonderful. But practically, we just don't use it. I mean, why do you want to use it? You want to show somebody you've got a light behind your logo, or why is it? But look, I suppose if we went off to land with a dinghy, there's quite often, it can be difficult identifying your boat in the distance, and we all do something with our lights. I mean, just the anchor light is not enough. We had lights all the way down the side, but we took them off because we thought that maybe we had stray current from them, because they were rusting super quickly. We didn't get any other problems, no loss of power or anything. They just suddenly, after 2 years, just out of the blue, started rusting, whereas they'd never done that before. So not sure what that was about, and I thought, look, I'm not going to bug around with that, so we just removed them. And so you need to identify your boat, and I guess that light would be a good light. And then we've got this red light that Leopard installed for us in the saloon galley, and this is quite an important light. When we're underway and you are doing something at the galley, so as not to kill your night vision, you use red lights, and this red light lets us see on top of the counters in the galley. Additionally, we have all of these floor lights that are red lights, one at each companionway. Before heading out in this boat, I figured it might be necessary, and we could still use them. It just turns out they're not really necessary. So would I do those again? Probably not. And then, very important for me in Utopia, and I absolutely love it, and I think we didn't go far enough with this. The factory give you floor lights as well as the ceiling lights, the mood lights in the cabins. And they work off one switch. So when you turn on that switch, both the floor light and the ceiling light come on. And they're on dimmers, which is fantastic. But I thought I would like to be able to run the floor mood light without the ceiling lights, or vice versa, but mostly the floor mood light. It makes such a difference just to run the mood lights over the floor and leave the rest of the room in a little bit of darkness. And I liked that so much, and Melinda liked it so much, that not only did we do it to every one of the cabins, we added the floor mood lights into the saloon. The factory don't give you that. And we've added that, and it's really, on most evenings after we've had dinner, that's all we run. In fact, when we go down to bed, that's all we leave on. It's way better than the light above you. It's down at the floor, and it looks fantastic, and it feels fantastic. So that's a really, really good one. I mean, if they charged me triple, I would have, or 5 times more, I would do it again. When we added this shelf over this area over here, as you go into the port aft cabin, That became a little bit dark, and so we added a light there. I think that we might have made a little bit of a mistake in that we should have actually put the light switch down there, because in order to run it, we've got to turn that light on from up in the saloon, which is a little bit impractical, but you can if you want. So we don't use it as much as we otherwise might have had we have put it down below. Looking at some electronic items which are not our navigation equipment. Well, in a previous video, I think in the stainless steel video, I spoke about R2D2 with all of these gauges. Again, absolutely fantastic, and it's all operated off the 12 volt, but really, really important. Again, port side, starboard side, fuel, water, holding tanks, a clock, and all the battery banks, the 2 engines, the 12 volt battery bank, and these people haven't yet made the 48 volt switch, but when they do, we'll change that. As an option, we put in the Fusion stereo. The factory didn't have it on a switch, so over here we put in a switch so we could turn it off and on. I think we would definitely not do that again. I think nowadays it's absolutely fine to run off a tablet and off a few of those JBL speakers, but I know most owners disagree with me. They love their Fusion stereo, and we have the speakers installed forward on the saloon, aft in the saloon, aft in the aft cockpit, and in the lounge upstairs. Additional to that, we also have these remote controls. So we have one remote control over here, so you can be sitting here and operate the next button or the volume button from here, and the same in the top lounge upstairs. As I mentioned earlier on, Leopard give you these 2 winches, which are mostly for all of your sheets and halyards. They give them to you electrically. That comes standard, but this one for your main sheet and your traveler is manual on the price list. You have to pay the optional extra to have it turned into electric winch, which we did. In retrospect, would I do it again? Yeah, probably, but I don't think it's a problem. You don't do a heck of a lot of moving. When you do move your traveler or your main sheet, it's not a lot. So it's not really necessary, but it is a nice to have. So, of course, they install the switch over there. At the back here, also running on 12 volt, is the system. We've had a lot of people, there's Melinda shouting for the video. We've had a lot of people actually say that this is, they come onto this boat and reckon it's an absolutely fantastic system, and it is. So that's the davit. It operates via this piece of Dyneema and into that winch over there, and this is the button on the ceiling for operating the davit system. And then, of course, we have the water maker. This is a 12 volt water maker, not a 220 volt. It's an Ecotech. They have a 12 volt 130 litre per hour, and they have a 220 volt 130 litre an hour. So I believe it's even the same motor. I think what they're doing with the 220 is they're stepping down to 12, or the other way around. I'm not sure, but apparently it makes no difference. Now, this is a very basic water maker. It's not one of the fancy Spectras or the Schenkers that are all automated, and they do all of that in an automated way. The guy in Cape Town felt that he didn't want to sell us one of those complicated ones, because apparently there's a lot to go wrong. And I get it, but had I had my way, I might have installed the filters higher than under the floor, because every time we want to operate the water maker, we just got to lift the floor hatch and move the valves, depending on what we want to do, either to flush or to put water in or whatever. It's not a big deal. It just would be a nice to have if those 2 filters with their valves on them are brought up and you didn't have to open the floor. Moving on to navigation equipment, the factory provides you a base pack. Now, the base pack comes with the P70 Autopilot system and the chain-driven Autopilot. Very important, the chain-driven Autopilot. And I'll get to that in a minute. It provides the VHF at the nav and the helm. It provides an Axiom 7. It's crazy. But anyway, and then you can upgrade to an Axiom 9 as part of the base pack. And then it provides an I-70 VHF, the main part of the VHF, and there's a handle, if you want to call it that, at the helm. It also comes, of course, with the depth transducer, the water speed transducer, and the wind transducer at the top of the mast. So that's the basic system, and it's not cheap. I think the base pack on this boat was $15,000 or $16,000 just for that. So very, very little. You're getting one little mini axiom. You're getting the 3 transducers that are necessary. You're getting the autopilot, chain-driven autopilot, with the pilot head, if you wish, the P70, I think it's called, and you are getting the VHF. That's it, for 16 grand or whatever it is, the price of a small motor car. Oh, very important. I've given thought to a number of items that are absolutely, if I had the opportunity to redo the boat, or if Leopard had to do something, you know, the factory, that should be done from a redundancy point of view. We had installed, and also part of the 12-volt system, is the direct drive unit. Now, the direct drive unit connects directly to the rudder bar on one of the rudders. In our case, we did it on the starboard side, but of course there's a connecting bar between both rudders. And it is just basically a piston that moves the rudder backward and forward and works off of the whole autopilot system in the space pack. In other words, the P70 control head. And we put that in as a redundancy against failure of the chain system that the factory provides. Now, we heard while we were in Cape Town, a lot of guys, especially when they were doing the VAT run to Ludritz, they would be the one guy on his way back and his chain drive broke. And now you're sitting there and you're manually steering and, you know, all of this sort of stuff. You don't want that. You have to have a backup autopilot system to begin with. But from my point of view, the factory should not be providing the chain drive system. They fail. That's number one. Number two, when the chain drive system is working and that kind of noise, and you're at night and you're underway and you're trying to sleep in your cabin, it's a real pain in the bum, and it always needs tensioning. They should supply this boat with a single direct drive unit in one of the engine rooms only, just a direct drive unit. And I'll tell you another reason why in a minute. And then you as the owner can put in a second redundant direct drive unit. One fails, so I've got the switch at the helm station. If my chain drive unit fails, I hit the button and it moves to my direct drive unit. Now, I run this boat purposely using both. I'll use the one for a month and the other for a month. So I just hit the button and it moves from the one to the other. There's another massive advantage with the direct drive unit. Now, if the actual entire steering system goes, let's say at the steering wheel, that entire system goes, everything is driven by a chain down to kind of an axle or bar. Let's say that chain goes at the steering system. You bug it. There's only one solution, is to take the pole that they give you, basically it's a tiller pole, put it into the hole at the back of the sugar scoop and stand there for the next 3,000 miles or whatever it is and operate your tiller that way. Some guys have rigged up a line and a block on either sugar scoop, and that line runs around and it connects to the tiller handle so that they don't have to stand dangerously on the sugar scoop, and they can sit at the rear end of the aft cockpit in the lounge and they can operate that line. They put a stick or a grab handle of some sort onto the line and they move it while they're sitting in the aft cockpit. But still, that's a monster job. But now consider, if that chain breaks and you have a direct drive unit, doesn't matter. It does not matter, because your pilot head is still operating the direct drive directly onto the rudder. You have to have the direct drive unit installed on your boat. And quite frankly, to the aftermarket people at Leopard, to Just Cats, you will be doing your customers an injustice if you're not insisting that they do it. Not insisting, they absolutely have to do that. So from both of those points of view, but specifically from the point of view of if the steering system fails. So if the autopilot fails, the factory autopilot, you're going to have to go up there and steer manually with the steering wheel. If the steering system fails, you're going to have to stand on the sugar scoop with the tiller. But if you've got the direct drive unit, nothing changes. You just keep going. The only thing that will change is when you're coming into port. Then you might not be able to get in because you can't run tiny little turns on your autopilot. But at very worst, you put your dinghy out, you get somebody with the dinghy, and they pull you into the slip. But hugely important. We took the I-70 that the factory gives us as standard. We also added the optional extra I-70 at the helm station that the factory offers, and we upgraded to the 12-inch. So here we've got the 12-inch Raymarine. Here we've got the P70 autopilot control head. Here we've got an I-70, and there we've got another I-70. So effectively, factory base pack I-70 and additional I-70 as per the factory. And then we added this I-70 over here. An absolute must. I mean, we sit at anchor now. We can see that we are facing into the wind. We can see how much wind we've got. And very, very importantly, we can see the depth. Now, we went a little bit, some people might say over the top, but Melinda will be anchoring outside here. She'll talk to me on the headphones and say, what's our depth? I might say that the depth is 10 and therefore put out 50. But I've given her the option of actually double checking me and seeing the depth herself. So when she's anchoring, she's got that and she can see that. And in fact, the other advantage is sometimes we're sitting here out here underway and I want to know what the wind is. So having this there is fantastic. It's a really nice to have. Not necessary, but I'd do it again. So in total, 4 I-70s on Utopia. Another option that we took from Marcel at Leopard, I'm not sure if it's necessary, but I heard that it might be necessary. Apparently, it's a good idea to upgrade your VHF cable. And somebody said put 2 in there, and I'm not sure if we got 2 or we got 1. I don't remember anymore, but they were talking about the fact that AIS also runs over the VHF, and I can just see it on our invoice that we upgraded VHF mast wiring. We put, obviously, as you've seen in the previous clip, a second MFD, a Raymarine MFD. Now, our MFDs on this boat are unlike any MFDs on Leopard. So Leopard provides you with the 9-inch or the 7-inch or the 9-inch, and we upgraded to the 12-inch. And then, in fact, we had Leopard in Cape Town aftermarket add another 12-inch. We have had constant trouble with our Raymarine MFDs. So Leopard provide the standard Axiom, not the Axiom Plus or the Axiom XL or the Axiom Pro. They're 4 models of Axiom. The top model is, you know, there's stuff in it you just don't need, kind of thing. In fact, the whole thing you don't need. I think the first 3 models are relevant. And I think the third model, what's relevant about it, is it comes with the manual control, amongst other things. But the key is the one that the factory and that Leopard provide when you just order 12 is the Axiom. It's not the Axiom Plus, which is 1 up, or the Axiom Pro, or the Axiom XL. It's just the Axiom. Our MFDs were constantly freezing, sometimes 3-4 times a day. And guess where it would do it right, or when it would do it right when you needed it. Not in the middle of the ocean when it didn't matter. So firstly, the one thing it was doing was it would freeze, and nothing you could do except go turn off the system. And if you turn it off at the switch, the instrument switch, as Leopard call it, that's it here. And you got the track function set, and you're traveling on track, then you lose everything. If you do happen to be under sail, the boat veers off, and next thing you know, you've got sails flapping and going crazy. So we eventually got hold of, as part of together with the help of Marcel at Leopard in Cape Town, he was trying to diagnose, and we were going through one item at a time. I got connected because of our Flir problems with Raymarine directly in the UK. Specifically with Louise and Evan, and they were fantastic. I mean, they worked through everything. Evan worked through every possible item. They suspected, amongst other things, the digital switching module, which provides all the information about the tanks, as an example. So fuel levels, water levels, holding tank levels, and a whole lot of other information. As you can see here, all of that information. And then also bilge information when the bilge pump turns on, engine room bilge, main bilges, engine exhaust warning, and then of course the waste tank's full warning, which is a waste, by the way, because the sensors that they put on the waste tanks, that the factory put on the waste tanks, are pretty much useless. They clog up and all of that. They need to be putting infrared sensors on, which we had done, and we can see from here, so we can tell exactly where our tanks are with the infrared switches to these analog dials. So anyway, so we were having all these issues with the Raymarine, and it was serious because you just lose it. So again, 2 things would happen. 1, the MFD would freeze, and 2, the MFD would just shut down, and it would do it randomly, and it would do it a lot. So eventually, Louise, and I must give a great shout out to Louise and Raymarine, she eventually said, it's got to be the MFDs. And as we pulled into Panama, they arranged with the local dealer to upgrade ours, and not to the same Axiom model, but to the Axiom Plus. Since this was done in that regard, our lives have changed. Now, I learned some other things. One of the things that improves, there's quite a few things, you can go look it up yourself, I don't know all of them off the top of my head, about the difference between the Axiom and the Axiom Plus. I've found it far more responsive. It just, the screen, it responds a whole lot quicker than the basic Axiom did. An additional thing, which was a terrible frustration, is this slider here. This slider on the Axiom wasn't very responsive, but here every time we touch it, and quite frequently you want to turn your, in the evening when you're underway, you want to turn your brightness on or off, and we'd have to go and do it manually over here hitting the buttons. But now, because I can rely on this, I use it, not having to use the buttons, which are a wear and tear item over there. Again, you know, if you can avoid putting in the Axiom and go for the Axiom Plus or whatever's a level above that, do that, because a lot of other Leopard owners, a heck of a lot, have all had exactly the same problem with this freezing. And quite frankly, if Leopard are listening, it is a safety issue. We had it happened when we were going through a cut in the Bahamas, and oh my gosh, you know, all sorts of, there was rock 20 meters this side of us and rock 20 meters of that side of us, and it could have turned out disastrously. Something I don't like too much about the Axioms, but which I did something about, was the fact that in order to put the card, the navigation card, getting a typical rainy day, rain downpour. I mean, it doesn't look as dramatic in the video, but pretty dramatic here in Panama. Quite love it actually. But anyway, is in order to put the navigation card into the Axiom, you have to somehow get behind the Axiom. Now you can't here. This is behind the dashboard. It's absolutely impossible. Not from the front anyway. You got to go remove the ceiling and climb up with the ladder and all of that. So that was just a ridiculous thing. Let me turn it off. There we go. So I had installed this card reader. So I had a card reader installed here, so I can just plug the card in here if I wish, or I can plug it in down here under the nav station. In the back is another card reader.